Okay, let's jump right into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're digging into a story that ultimately forces us to confront one fundamental truth. In life, nothing but time is truly valuable. Think about it. Time is our most precious asset, right? Once it's spent, there's absolutely no getting it back. So today, we're exploring the life of Nirmal Purja, better known to the world as Nimsdai, a Nepalian British mountaineer who just completely refused to accept traditional timelines for human achievement. He didn't just climb mountains. He practically waged war against the clock, deciding that what took others an entire lifetime, he was going to accomplish in just a fraction of the time.
Now, to really wrap our heads around exactly how Nimsdai manipulated time, we first need to look at the benchmark he was up against. For a very long time in the mountaineering world, 7 years was the absolute number to beat. 7 whole years. And honestly, that was considered a staggeringly fast, almost unbelievable record to climb all 14 of the world's 8,000-meter peaks. We're talking about mountains in the literal death zone, where human life simply cannot sustain itself for long. Conquering just one of these giants is a lifetime achievement for most elite climbers. So to knock out all 14 in 7 years, that was the absolute gold standard of what anyone thought was humanly possible.
Well, how about 6 months and 6 days? Yeah, that was the breathtaking time frame of his 2019 expedition, famously dubbed Project Possible. He didn't just break that 7-year record, he completely annihilated it. He compressed what was quite literally a lifetime of extreme, edge-of-human-limits climbing into a handful of months. And it really begs the question, if someone can compress 7 years of the absolute most extreme human endurance into 6 months, how much of our own time are we leaving on the table?
Section 1. Forged in the military, building resilience.
So how exactly does someone develop the kind of extreme physical and mental conditioning required to defy time like this? I mean, you don't just wake up one day and decide to sprint up 14 mountains. The foundation of his superhuman efficiency was actually laid years earlier, far, far away from the spotlight. Nimsdai was born in a small village in the Magdi district of Nepal, and his beginnings were incredibly humble. In a National Geographic interview, he recalled, "We came from a really poor family. As a kid, I remember I didn't even have flip-flops." His parents were from different castes, which essentially meant they were socially and financially cut off. It was actually his older brothers, who were serving as Gurkha soldiers, who stepped up and funded his education at an English-speaking boarding school. And that education, combined with that deep sense of discipline, became his launchpad. And that resilience, it was forged rapidly. In 2003, he joined the Brigade of Gurkhas. By 2009, he made history, becoming the very first Gurkha to join the elite British Special Boat Service, where he served as a cold-weather warfare specialist. He saw action across multiple theaters of war, and get this, he even took a sniper bullet to the butt of his rifle that narrowly missed his neck. But the most crucial point in his timeline, especially regarding this idea of time and value, is 2018. That year, he made the monumental decision to resign from the military to climb full-time. He literally walked away from a life-changing army pension. Why? Because to him, the time he could spend achieving his ultimate potential was vastly more valuable than the financial security of a pension.
Section 2. Project Possible, defying the limits of time.
This is where we get into those awe-inspiring speed records that completely defined his legacy, a legacy built entirely on the concept of saving and manipulating time. Project Possible 14-7 was broken down into 3 absolutely relentless phases. Phase 1 began in April 2019 in Nepal. Phase 2 kicked off in July in Pakistan. And finally, Phase 3 wrapped up on October 29, 2019 in Tibet. Working alongside an incredibly dedicated team of Sherpas and utilizing supplemental oxygen, Purja just swept across Nepal, Pakistan, and China. He wasn't just climbing, he was executing a massive logistical, military-style operation across the globe's most hostile terrain. To truly grasp the speed we're talking about here, just consider this one mind-bending micro-record. He summited Mount Everest on May 22nd. Then, he summited Lhotse on that very same day, and just 2 days later, on May 24th, he stood on top of Makalu. That is 3 of the absolute highest mountains in the world, conquered consecutively in exactly 48 hours. Most climbers need weeks to recover from just one of these peaks, and Purja treated them like a busy weekend itinerary. But here's the thing. He wasn't just about speed with oxygen. He also chased historic firsts. January 16, 2021. On this date, Purja, alongside 9 other brilliant Nepali climbers, achieved what was considered one of the last great impossible mountaineering feats, the first winter ascent of K2. They don't call it the Savage Mountain for nothing, and in winter, it is a frozen nightmare.
But what makes this even more astounding is that Purja was the only member of that historic 10-man team to reach the summit without using any supplemental oxygen. Section 3. Allegations and Controversies. The Shadow Cast. Now, we're going to slow things down a bit, because as with many highly public figures, Purja's later career became clouded by very serious controversies. Looking at the source material objectively and neutrally, according to reporting published in the New York Times in May 2024, two women came forward with serious allegations against Purja. Dr. April Leonardo alleged that Purja made unwanted advances, including grabbing and kissing her, during a 2022 expedition to K2. Furthermore, Lada Hintsa, a professional mountaineer, alleged that Purja sexually assaulted her in a Kathmandu hotel suite in March of 2023. We are simply presenting the claims made by the accusers here exactly as they were reported in the source material. In response to these claims, Purja vehemently and publicly denied the allegations. Through his legal team and directly on his own social media channels, he called the accusations heinous and false and defamatory. He stated that the media reports had omitted key context and details from multiple witnesses who were present at the time. These competing narratives, and obviously the gravity of the situation, ultimately led to a 2025 DBC podcast investigation titled Summit Justice. That series featured interviews with climbers, journalists, the accusers, and Purja himself as he continued to publicly refute the claims. And the controversies actually extended over into his business dealings as well. Throughout 2024, the Himalayan Times published 17 different articles alleging wrongdoing by Purja and his expedition companies. In response to this, Purja filed a formal complaint. By February 2025, the Nepal Press Council ruled on the matter, officially blacklisting the Himalayan Times and removing government advertising. The council stated the articles were unilateral and imbalanced. The publication in turn fired back, claiming the council's actions were arbitrary and completely unconstitutional. Section 4. The Broad Peak Avalanche. Time runs out. This brings us to the really tragic and abrupt end of Purja's story, returning our focus squarely back to that inescapable finality of time. Because no matter how fast you move, the clock eventually stops. The facts are sobering. On July 30, 2026, while climbing in Pakistan's Karakoram range, Nirmal Purja's life came to an end. He, along with 9 other climbers, was killed in a massive, devastating avalanche on Broad Peak. The man who had spent his entire life navigating and surviving the world's most treacherous death zones was finally caught by the mountain. And this brings us to this number, 43. He was just 43 years old. This tragically emphasizes the core theme of this explainer today. Despite his literal superhuman ability to conquer the world's highest peaks in mere months, despite hacking timelines and compressing decades of intense effort into days, his own time was cut brutally short. It's a really stark reminder that time is finite for all of us, no matter our physical strength or our sheer force of will. His passing left behind a complex, heavily debated, yet undeniably historic legacy. International tributes poured in, recognizing his unstoppable spirit and his history-making courage. William, Prince of Wales, publicly described Purja as one of the world's greatest mountaineers, while figures like Bear Grylls honored his incredibly unique drive. For better or worse, he completely rewrote the rulebook of what the human body and mind could achieve at high altitudes. So, what should you take away from all of this? We've just looked at a man who viewed time as his greatest asset, who sacrificed financial safety to maximize his hours on Earth, who shattered the boundaries of human speed, but who still faced the ultimate deadline far too early. It leaves us with a final, provocative thought to consider today. In life, nothing but time is truly valuable. If a man can conquer the world's highest peaks in mere months, but still run out of time at 43, how will you spend yours? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.